So My First Yoga is a kids yoga company. It started in Boston as a service-based company where we work with 2 to 6-year-olds in childcare settings. So I train teachers to bring our My First Yoga programming into schools and venues like the Boston Children's Museum, New England Aquarium, and we work with the Boston Red Sox as well. And last year we started pivoting into products. So we designed some characters that are very child-friendly, and we use them as kind of characters to, we have books now, apps, and we're expanding into a larger product line. So we're looking for funding to build things like an e-learning platform and more robust apps. I studied psychology in school, more specifically how exercise can impact self-confidence. And then I actually went into finance for a year and a half and decided I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to get back to my roots of exercise. I was an athlete in college. And decided to open a kids yoga studio to start, and then my vision expanded and I wanted to grow larger into larger service and more products. My reason for starting a kids yoga company stems from my background, but also from exercise really helped me personally when I was growing up. I grew up with ADHD, and so it really, I was a swimmer, and it helped me to kind of focus my mind and my energy and harness control, I guess. And so that's something I really wanted to give back. I love working with kids, and I feel like I want to expose kids to a healthy lifestyle from the very beginning. So that's why I decided to do it. See, my biggest challenge when I was getting started is that I didn't really know any other entrepreneurs, and so I kind of had to make everything up myself, which is great, and with technology, you know, you can do that, but once I started to meet more entrepreneurs, I realized that even though they're not in the kids yoga business, that they had a lot to offer me, and I could offer them advice, so I think that that was the biggest challenge and easiest way to solve it. So another entrepreneur example of how they could help me is when I first got started as a kids yoga studio, I shared an office with another business called Bead and Pearl that started at the same time. And so we shared an office, and we realized even though we had very different business models, we actually went through the same things at the same time because we're really starting at the same time. How to get customers to come into our store, those are the same problems but completely different models. So we talked them out and then helped each other out with that. When I graduated from college, I went into finance, which is very opposite from all of my interests and passions. So I realized that I needed to really do something I was more passionate about. So I decided to leave my job on the trading floor and start a kids yoga company. Took a leap of faith, and I'm very glad I did. So there are a lot of risks, but there are ways that you can kind of evaluate your risks. So first, you need to find something that you're really passionate about, and if you don't really have something you're really passionate about, don't force an idea. I think that would be my first example or first suggestion, and the second suggestion would be to make sure you're building something that people want. If you're not solving a problem and building something that people want, then you may need to kind of maybe work for a startup for a little bit and see if that's something that you want to do, and then come up with a different idea. But it's not for everybody, but it's for somebody who can wear many hats at the same time, be okay with taking risks both financially and you're giving up a lot of your time personally as well. I think my advice to high school or college students would be to try on entrepreneurship if they're really thinking about it. So an example would be, even when I was younger, we started a lemonade stand. That's kind of entrepreneurial. But then when you're in the high school and college age, you have things that you're really good at and that you're passionate about. So you could teach lessons, for example. I got started by just teaching a yoga lesson to kids, and I found that was the easiest part. The more challenging part for me was the business side, was doing the development in terms of marketing and getting clients and managing clients. So I learned a lot that way, and then I went on to start my company. And so I think it's the baby steps that really helped me to get where I am right now. My biggest challenge right now is that I'm looking for funding. So we need funding to expand. I guess that's not a huge challenge because there's lots of funding out there, but our niche is so specific. We're not a disruptive technology company, and we're not in biotech or something like that. So finding the right investor who's going to be able to not just invest in us financially, but also in their intellectual capital as well. The structure of my business is in the Boston area. We have a service side, so we service 50 different accounts, which are schools and different child-friendly venues. And so we hire contractors to teach the My First Yoga style in schools. And then in terms of products, we have books and apps, and we're expanding into a much larger product line. So how did I create a system? Well, first I had to develop a curriculum that was, it took a few years, probably 2 years of teaching to develop a real curriculum that worked with kids and was engaging for kids, which is why the service base of our company is so important and was the foundation. And once we got that down and understood what really spoke to kids, then we were able to teach it to other instructors to then go out and teach it. And that's what we're doing when we build our e-learning platform, is we're going to be putting tools online so that childcare providers can actually log in, get certified to teach, and then teach in their classrooms. So they don't have to be specifically yoga instructors to teach wellness and yoga to students. Right now, to approach financing, we're putting together a pitch deck and trying to network, like at this event, with lots of different people, and find people who are interested in our space and who also have some kind of experience in the child world, in the technology world, trying to find the right fit. So my approach to finance is that I'm trying to interview the financier, I guess, instead of having them interview me, which I find is a really, it's probably the best approach, because then we don't seem like we're desperate, and then we really are getting what we want out of the deal. My best piece of advice to young people who are thinking of being entrepreneurs is to make sure that you're doing something you're passionate about, number one. Number two is build something that people want, and make sure that you're testing your product along the way. Don't spend lots of money on building something that you don't know if people want, because no matter when you build something, you're going to be changing it as users give you feedback. And then the last thing is just to, once you have a passion and you know that people want it, just make the step and do it, because that's probably the hardest part, is leaving a job or making that transition into entrepreneurship is pretty tough, but very rewarding. So networking is really important. Sometimes I think that entrepreneurs don't like it, and sometimes I feel like they embrace it. It's kind of a back and forth. It depends on the stage of your company, but like I mentioned, I think that my first challenge as an entrepreneur is that I didn't know any other entrepreneurs, and so one of the solve was to meet other entrepreneurs, so going to networking events, and I feel like that's really been able to build my confidence as an entrepreneur, and to solve problems with other folks who are in the same ballpark. And then now it's a great way to learn from people's experience. So I'm looking for funding right now, and I'm networking with people who have already had funding, maybe sold their first company, or they're investors themselves. So it's a great way to continue to grow.